The detention deck smelled like antiseptic and arrogance. Gleaming metal walls curved inward, as though trying to keep the prisoners crushed by their own insignificance. Overhead, the lights flickered in calculated rhythm, a psychological tactic lifted from Earth war manuals. Ironically, the Galactic Empire, for all its contempt of humans, was eager to borrow from them. 8 guards stood outside cell 88, a number chosen purely for bureaucratic neatness. Inside, seated cross-legged on the floor with her hands cuffed behind her back, was General Rae Brennan, Terran Defense Forces, decorated war tactician, survivor of the Andromedan incursion, and, as of 20 minutes ago, galactic prisoner #000193H. She was smiling. To be precise, she wore the kind of smile you'd see from a kindergarten teacher about to disassemble a nuclear warhead during circle time. Calm, polite, curious. Dangerously nonchalant. "She doesn't look like much," muttered Lieutenant Krex, a hulking almary with 4 tusks and an ego that had never encountered defeat. Skinny. No claws. No exoskeleton. "I could break her spine with one." "You'd need a lot more than that," said a voice behind him. Krex turned, annoyed, but it was only Subwarden Lyrith, the ship's operations overseer. She was Threxian, 6-limbed, eyes like molten copper, and always chewing something rubbery. She clicked her mandibles and gestured to the data slate hovering beside her. "She's not here because she lost," Lyrith continued. "She's here because she let us take her. That's what's strange." "She surrendered," Krex snapped. "They all break eventually." She didn't break. She negotiated. Gave herself up in exchange for her squad's extraction. Lyrith tilted her head. "There's a difference." Inside the cell, Rae hummed a cheerful tune, barely audible. She was inspecting the wall, as if contemplating interior design options. When she caught Krex staring, she nodded politely. "Nice ship," she said. Krex frowned. "You are in prison." "Yes, and it's a very clean prison. Love what you've done with the lights. Very ominous." "Is that humor?" Krex growled. "No, that was an observation. This is humor, a 4-ton lizard, a bug, and a human walk into a cell. Guess who walks out?" Krex started toward the door, but Lyrith raised a limb. "Not yet. Let's see how long the mask holds." It had been 3 hours since Rae's capture. The mission transcript said she surrendered calmly after cornering an entire Empire platoon in a jungle canyon. The prisoners she bartered for were exfiltrated unharmed. Not a single casualty. Rae, of course, didn't fire a shot. Lyrith had read the file twice. Humans were classified as Class 5 Deathworlders, extreme environments, unstable climates, hyper-adaptable biology, and something called stubborn emotional resilience, which translated roughly to, "They'll smile while stabbing you with a spoon." Lyrith entered the cell alone. Rae looked up. "T. You don't have any." "True. But you seem like someone who values hospitality." Lyrith studied her. "You surrendered without a fight. That's not the Deathworlder reputation." Rae tilted her head. "Would it be more impressive if I'd taken 10 of your men down before capture?" "Yes." "Oh, sorry for disappointing you. I prefer to be underestimated." The room fell silent. Lyrith stepped closer. "Why are you smiling?" "I like people," Rae said, blinking innocently. "Even the ones who chain me to walls." "You're chained for security. You're chained by fear." Lyritha's upper eyes twitched. "What are you?" "Human," Rae said. "You've met 1 or 2, I suppose. The ones who panic and shout and look fragile. But I'm not here to shout. You're here to be interrogated." Rae leaned forward, as far as the chains would allow, then asked better questions. Outside, Krex was growing impatient. "Let me in there. I'll break her." "You'll die trying," Lyrith muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Krex stormed off. A few of the younger guards, less arrogant than he, hung back and watched the feed. They didn't know what to make of her. No threats, no panic. Just a woman who seemed amused. Back in the cell, Lyrith circled Rae. "I read your file. You were at Torgon's Rift. You outmaneuvered 3 fleets. I just rearranged the options they didn't see. Like a game of chess. Except in chess, the pieces don't bleed. And then you vanished for 7 months." Had to get my teeth cleaned. Lyritha's patience thinned. You mock us. Not at all. I respect you. You did manage to catch me. Then why do you look like someone counting seconds? Rae finally stopped smiling. For a moment, the mask cracked, and something ancient and calculating gleamed behind her eyes. Because I am. Lyrith stiffened. What happens when you reach the number? Rae smiled again, smaller this time. We'll find out. The guards monitoring the cell began receiving strange reports. Internal cameras blinking. Access logs repeating. Atmospheric stabilizers adjusting without command. System glitch, one asked. Impossible, said another. We just had a cycle purge. Lock her cell manually, Krex barked, reappearing with frustration and a pulse rifle. Already locked, the technician said. She's not going anywhere. Inside, Rae stretched, rolling her shoulders. You know, humans have a weird reputation in this galaxy. Lyrith didn't reply. You here were savage, violent, unpredictable. All true. But you know what's funny? That's just the loud ones. And you're not loud? Rae leaned forward again, eyes suddenly very cold. I'm the one who teaches the loud ones how to be quiet. The lights flickered. 3 guards outside the cell collapsed, unconscious. Krex raised his weapon. Gas, he shouted. No, the tech's voice was shaking. No biological trace. It's like their nervous systems reset. Inside the cell, Rae stood up. The chains holding her wrists hissed and released. Lyrith stumbled back, reaching for a stunner. I wouldn't, Rae said, her voice still maddeningly polite. It won't work. Someone disabled the local frequency relays. You did that from inside a cell? Of course not. That would be impossible. Lyritha's relief was short-lived. I did it before I got in. Krex charged into the cell as the lights went black. In the silence, 3 things happened. A crunch, a thud, and Rae's voice faint and amused. See? The human walks out. Emergency lighting sputtered to life. Krex was on the floor, groaning. Rae stood above him, holding a fractured pair of restraints like nunchaku. Lyritha's comm crackled. Multiple decks losing power. AI core spiking. She's in the system. Not her, someone whispered. Rae looked up at the corner of the cell, where a tiny blinking light flickered once and died. You know, the best part about surrendering is choosing the terms. You just didn't realize what mine were. Lyrith backed out of the cell. Container. 4 guards rushed in. They didn't last 10 seconds. Rae didn't kill them. She simply disabled them. Pressure points, breath control, disarming techniques executed with ballet-like precision. Each movement was deliberate, controlled, efficient. She walked out of the cell as alarms flared across the detention deck. The surviving guards were running, shouting over each other, forming checkpoints. Rae walked calmly down the hallway, barefoot, dragging one of the cuffs along the floor. Sparks danced across her skin. The ship's defense turret swiveled, then abruptly turned away. A voice in the control room screamed, "She's overriding the targeting matrix." She can't be. Then why are the guns pointing at us? In the mess hall, a dozen off-duty officers watched the feed in stunned silence. One whispered, she didn't escape. She was delivered. The deck commander activated lockdown protocols. Seal everything. She's one human. We are a fleet prison. We have protocols. Someone muttered. So did the Karsathi. Before she made their navy eat each other alive. At the far end of the corridor, Rae stepped through a bulkhead door just as it sealed behind her. She paused, then tapped her comm, one they never found during intake. Status, she asked. A voice crackled back. Ready. Beacon planted. Phase 1 complete. Good, Rae said. They'll be distracted for the next 7 minutes. Begin upload. Lyrith watched the feed. Her limbs trembled. She turned to the tech team. She wasn't the threat. She was the signal. The cell now stood empty, door wide open. On the wall, written in something that looked like blood, but was actually fruit paste from the breakfast tray, were 3 words. 10 minutes. Run. The story wasn't over. Not even close. The emergency sirens aboard the Orion's Judgment had stopped. Not because the situation was under control, but because someone had overwritten the alert systems. General Rae Brennan walked with the calm poise of someone who had read the ship's entire schematic from memory, and had also written the revised escape manual in her head during lunch. She was barefoot, still wearing the gray polyfiber prisoner suit, but it didn't matter. She moved like a phantom among amateurs, fluid, efficient, unsentimental. The hallways were empty now, not from protocol, but panic. Only one person had seen her face and walked away without bruises, Subwarden Lyrith. And she wasn't planning to test her luck a second time. From the central surveillance station, Lyrith watched Rae bypass another sealed bulkhead. It was like the doors wanted to open for her. Guards who confronted her didn't even manage to draw breath before they were lying unconscious, arms folded neatly, weapons dismantled beside them like polite apologies. "She's disabling without killing," noted Commander Vrax, now present on the bridge after a full emergency recall. He was a Vexery, tall, green-scaled, and obsessed with order. His voice carried the deep thrum of someone used to being obeyed. Lyrith didn't turn from the screen. "For now." Vrax narrowed his eyes. "And what happens when for now expires? You won't be alive to wonder." Vrax scoffed. "She's just one human." Lyrith turned slowly. "She is why you know the word Deathworlder, Commander. You're welcome, by the way. My report 2 cycles ago recommended not engaging Earth under any circumstances. And yet here she is." "Engaged," he said dryly. Rae entered the armory. Security systems flared red, and then went dark. Not disabled, reprogrammed. She picked up nothing deadly. No rifles, no grenades. Just a coil of cable, a field beacon, and a maintenance tool. "I don't understand her objective," Vrax muttered. "She already achieved it," Lyrith replied. "Now she's improvising." Down in the lower decks, Rae paused at a ventilation panel. She unscrewed it with one hand and placed the field beacon inside. It began to blink, harmless to most eyes, but not to those watching from far beyond the ship's sensors. Outside the Orion's judgment, cloaked in the blind spot Rae had calculated 3 days prior, a stealth drone activated and transmitted a pulse toward Earth. From the bridge, chaos multiplied. "She's activated something," said the sensor officer. "Unknown frequency. It's bouncing off our hull internal." "She's not escaping," Vrax growled. "She's preparing a show." Back in the vent, Rae smiled to herself and whispered, "Lights. Camera. Let's teach them fear." A group of mercenary reinforcements arrived from the nearby cruiser Heartspear, called in by Vrax as overkill. He wanted noise, intimidation, an immediate response to Empire protocols being mocked. They marched in formation, weapons drawn, armor humming with charge. They were led by a brute named Nazgul, a 6-limbed brutish Silithian who specialized in civilizing rebellious planets through heavy casualties. He cracked his neck as he looked at the map. "She's in section Theta 7. That's a dead end." "Perfect." "Perfect," Rae echoed softly as she watched them through the ceiling vent. "I do like volunteers." Nazgul's squad kicked down the access door, only to find the chamber pitch black and oddly warm. They entered anyway. The last thing the security feed caught was the sound of someone laughing quietly before the entire room was filled with thick, engineered fog. Harmless, but blinding. Motion sensors flipped. Plasma shots fired blindly. Screams, a few thuds. When the mist cleared, Rae sat cross-legged in the center of the room, sipping from a hydration pouch. One of the mercs had dropped. All 7 of Nazgul's soldiers were laid out in a perfect ring around her, their weapons melted at critical joints using a maintenance torch. Rae tilted her head toward the only functioning camera and said, "That took longer than expected. Tell the next group to bring snacks." She stood up, stretched, and walked away. "You see now," Lyrith said quietly. "She doesn't need reinforcements. She is the reinforcement. The escalation. The endgame." Vrax's fists clenched. "What does she want?" Lyrith didn't answer, because she wasn't sure. But she had a feeling it was an escape. No, Rae had never tried to leave. She was exploring. As if on cue, Rae entered the diplomatic reception chamber, a lavishly decorated room used to host visiting dignitaries. She plopped down onto a golden couch and began flipping through a menu slate, casually perusing alien cuisine options. A recorded voice spoke overhead. "Welcome to the Galactic Empire's luxury hospitality wing. Please state your preference." Rae grinned. "Something with cinnamon, if you've got it. Oh, and send someone with a working translator. I think we're overdue for a little diplomacy." Lirith, watching, felt a chill. "She wants to talk." "Then we talk," Vrax said, already walking toward the negotiation room. "And if words fail, we tranquilize her into stardust." The diplomatic chamber was soundproof, lined with passive scanning tech. Vrax entered with 2 guards, both heavily armed, but ordered to remain silent unless she attacked. Rae didn't move when he entered. She tapped a rhythm on the armrest of the couch. Something annoyingly catchy. "Commander Vrax, I presume," she said without looking. "Sit, stand, hover. Dealer's choice." "I want answers." "Of course you do. But wanting isn't the same as deserving. I could kill you right now." "You could try," Rae said, finally glancing up. "But then you'd never know how I turned your ship into a Trojan horse." Vrax blinked. Rae smirked. "I didn't disable your weapons. I rerouted their permissions. Your own systems only recognize me as authorized now. Kind of awkward, isn't it?" "You're bluffing." "Would you like me to demonstrate?" Vrax hesitated, then signaled for the guards to lower their weapons. Rae took a sip of her drink, some sort of blue citrus blend. "You know what always fascinates me about the galaxy? You all assume that because humans are chaotic, we're primitive. You think unpredictability is a flaw." She leaned forward. "It's not. It's an edge. You're predictable. Even your threats come with paperwork. I will have this ship locked down tighter than a neutron vault. You already did. Before I arrived. I like that. Made it easier to find the gaps." Vrax's jaw twitched. "Why did you let us capture you?" "To watch." "Watch what?" "Your protocol. Your command hierarchy. Your response time. Your internal inconsistencies. What your scanners miss. What your guards say when they think I don't understand their language." She stood slowly and placed the empty glass on the table. "You didn't capture me. You invited me in. I simply RSVP'd." From the observation room above, Lirith whispered, "She's testing limits." "No," said the diplomatic aide beside her. "She's redrawing them." Rae walked past Vrax and toward the exit. Meeting adjourned. "I'll be in touch." "You think you can just leave?" "I know I can." She tapped the door, which opened obediently, though it was supposed to remain locked from the outside. As she disappeared down the hall, Vrax finally said the words he'd been resisting. "She's not a soldier. She's an infiltrator." "No," Lirith said again. "She's worse. She's a strategist." Throughout the ship, whispered legends were already spreading. "Did you hear she killed a Thorgalai with a dinner fork?" "She didn't kill anyone. She convinced them to eject themselves." "She controls the air filtration system." "She reprogrammed the medbots to give her massages." Rumors, all ridiculous, and yet somehow not ridiculous enough. Rae entered the ship's cultural exchange archive, a museum of sorts, filled with ancient artifacts from dozens of worlds. She wandered among displays, reading plaques, humming softly. She stopped at one, a broken Terran coffee maker labeled artifact of primitive caffeine dependency. She chuckled. "Primitive," she muttered. "You have no idea." As she moved, her comm clicked once. It was time. She approached a sealed console and placed her palm against it. A light scanned her hand and blinked green. "Access granted. Priority clearance, Brennan." She tapped a sequence. The beacon she planted earlier pinged. A cascade of data uploaded directly into the ship's primary uplink. The Orion's judgment was now a broadcasting tower. Back on Earth, at a secure Terran command node, screens lit up. "She's in," said the technician. The Admiral leaned forward. "Maintain ghost mode. Observe. If she asks for support." "She won't," someone else said. "She never does." On the ship, panic escalated. Doors stopped obeying commands. Security logs were wiped. Entire departments went dark. The Empire was trying to contain a storm they'd carried into their own house. In the mess hall, A nervous ensign found himself face to face with Rae as she wandered in and grabbed a protein bar. He froze. She smiled kindly. "You want half?" He shook his head violently. "No." She shrugged. "More for me." "Are you going to kill us?" he blurted. Rae paused. "No. But you could." "Definitely." "Why not?" She thought for a moment. "Because killing you would end the lesson early. And I'm a big believer in teachable moments." He nodded, then fainted. Rae ate the bar and walked out. Back on the bridge, Vrax slammed a fist into the console. "She's dismantling morale." "She doesn't need guns," Lyrith said. "She uses certainty." And removes it. Alarms began to scream again, now overridden with a human voice. Rae's voice. "Hello, this is your friendly neighborhood Deathworlder. You might be wondering why your systems are screaming, your weapons are inert, and your communications are being intercepted. Short answer, me. Long answer, me, but slower." Her voice was calm, amused, terrifying. "I didn't come here to escape. I came here to test the waters. To see if the galaxy still makes the same mistake it's always made, assuming Earth is small, that humans are weak, that politeness is submission. Spoiler, it isn't." She ended the broadcast with a soft hum. The Orion's judgment fell silent. Vrax looked around. "We can't let her leave." "She's already gone," Lyrith said. "No, she's still on the ship." Lyrith shook her head. "That's not what I mean. She came here on her terms. You'll never catch up now." In the diplomatic chamber, Rae returned and sat once more. She was waiting. And now the Empire would have to ask why. The first shot was fired by someone with more pride than aim. It didn't matter. Pride never survived long around General Rae Brennan. The bolt struck the wall to her left, sending a harmless scatter of sparks across the hallway. Rae, standing calmly at the corner junction near the ship's propulsion nerve cluster, didn't even flinch. She turned slightly, as if considering whether to acknowledge the shooter's effort or just let the silence do the job. A pause. Then another bolt, this time from the right, better aimed, still ineffective. It scorched the panel behind her. She sighed, tucked the stolen multi-tool into her waistband, and rolled her eyes toward the ceiling. "Okay," she said, tone clipped and breezy. "You've had your 2 warning shots. Now it's my turn." 2 sets of boots retreated around opposite corners, but not before a third figure, a tactical commander from the Heartspear's elite guard, stepped forward. He was massive, plated in shimmering anti-energy armor and wielding a rail spear. "You're contained," he growled, voice like gravel in a blender. "I have 10 units converging. This ends here." Rae tilted her head. "Do you really want to say that sentence to a human?" His brows knit. "What sentence?" She smiled. "The one that's always followed by disaster." The lights flickered once. Then every blast door behind her sealed. From the deck to the bulkhead, locked tight. The rail spear fizzled in his grip, overloaded by a localized EMP field Rae had triggered 30 seconds ago. He lunged anyway. She ducked under his swing, kicked his leg out from under him, and drove her knee into the side of his helmet. The armor saved him barely. Rae pivoted, grabbed the edge of his spear, and twisted. With a hiss of escaping coolant, the weapon came apart like a folding chair under a linebacker. He fell, groaning. She crouched beside him. "See, I told you. That was my turn." The ship groaned as a new lockdown initiated. But it wasn't from the command deck. It was being executed from internal maintenance conduits, places only engineers, janitorial drones, and now Rae could access. On the bridge, Vrax's scaled knuckles whitened as he punched up the security schematic. "She's taken Theta, Sigma, and most of Delta. She's bottlenecking us." "It's psychological warfare," Lyrith said, unnerved. "She could have escaped 5 times. She doesn't want escape. She wants collapse," Vrax muttered. Rae didn't want collapse. Not entirely. She wanted understanding. The kind that only came when your enemy realized, too late, that they'd misjudged you from the very beginning. Her movements weren't random. They were surgical. She was isolating command nodes, separating crew by language and hierarchy, rerouting communication filters to mislabel instructions. A Vanari engineer received an order to flush the airlock, only to discover it was actually meant for coolant recycling. A Goran medic tried to request reinforcements and instead triggered a lullaby protocol across the combat deck. Nothing fatal, nothing permanent, just humiliating. Fear wasn't bred from blood. It came from chaos, from the understanding that your systems, your sacred order, were now tools for your enemy's amusement. At the center of her plan was perception. She entered the primary comms array chamber like a professor walking into an empty lecture hall. She laid out 6 small devices, powered them up, and set them to broadcast. In an instant, every screen on the ship flickered to life, from crew quarters to command consoles. Rae appeared in a calm, seated position, legs crossed, hands folded. "Hi again," she said. "It's me. You've probably realized by now that I'm not really a prisoner." She gestured behind her to a looping diagram of the ship's structure. "You see, when you built this lovely vessel, you prioritized efficiency and control. Very admirable. What you didn't account for was perspective. From inside your system, everything seems secure. But to an outsider, especially one trained to see the gaps, well, it's like a crossword puzzle written in crayon." Vrax slammed the emergency override. "Cut that feed." The technician paled. "Sir, she's not using our channels. She created her own. Internal only." Rae's voice continued. "Some of you are wondering why I haven't killed anyone. Others are wondering when I will. That's the fun part of humans. We love a good misdirection. One hand shows you a smile. The other is planting the trap." She stood up, camera following smoothly from a drone she'd commandeered. "You didn't capture me. You didn't even detain me. I volunteered, because the Galactic Empire needed to learn something the hard way." She leaned in, eyes bright. "You've spent cycles studying humanity like a virus. Dangerous, yes, but containable. You thought our unpredictability made us fragile." She held up her fingers. 3 truths about humans. We're adaptable. We're cooperative. And we're terrifying when underestimated. The drone cut feed. Silence spread across the ship like fog. Rae, now deep within the central AI cluster, watched the crew react in real time. Panic. Doubt. Isolation. Perfect. She didn't hate them. That was the secret. She pitied them. Above, in the surveillance nest, Lyrith finally broke protocol. She's not an infiltrator. She's an apex predator. Vrax turned, eyes narrowed. "She's just one person." Lyrith shook her head slowly. "That's enough. When the person knows how to be one." The command deck shuddered. Something had triggered a mass alert in the ship's AI. But the log said nothing. There was no error. No attack. Just a message. 4 words. In Terran script. "You still don't see." Rae moved again, backtracking toward the engineering decks. Not to destroy. To talk. She passed a group of guards frozen in place. Some tried to lift weapons. Others simply lowered them. One brave lieutenant, a slim amphibian species with bright blue eyes, stepped forward. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, voice tight with effort. Rae paused. "You remember the species you annexed from the Ocean Belt last cycle," she said. "You said it was for their protection." The officer flinched. "I saw what was left. Your version of protection looks a lot like conquest with paperwork." She turned slowly. "You pride yourselves on being advanced, civilized. But you don't ask. You take. You observe, catalog, and then declare ownership." The officer swallowed hard. "What are you going to do to us?" Rae smiled gently. "Teach you what that feels like." The officer nodded and stepped aside. Rae gave her a respectful nod in return. When she entered the AI core, she wasn't alone. A diplomatic envoy had been dispatched from a neutral station to intervene. A pale, multi-eyed alien named Dale, robed in white, stood waiting. "You could have signaled Earth directly," Dale said. "Why this?" Rae circled the core slowly. "Because the message needed to be earned. Broadcasts get ignored. Experiences get remembered. You've caused widespread fear. I could have caused far worse." Dale watched her. "And what would it take for you to stop?" She didn't answer right away. "I don't want surrender. I want recognition. I want the Galactic Empire to stop pretending humans are lucky survivors and start realizing we are intentional ones. Dale nodded. You've made your point. Rae looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then write it down. And maybe the next time one of you wants to chain up a human, you'll remember this day. A quiet ping from her comm told her what she needed to know. Her drone had transmitted the final data packet. Earth had everything it needed. Ship layout, crew hierarchy, weapon systems, behavioral patterns, a full dossier. The mission was complete. She activated the beacon and walked away. Vrax, watching from the command deck, realized far too late. It had never been about containment. It had been about analysis. Rae had studied them more thoroughly than their entire scientific corps had studied her. She left the ship without ceremony, slipping into an escape pod routed along a shuttle cleaning path. The only thing she left behind was a datapad with one sentence etched into its face. Next time, send cookies. As her pod slipped into space, cloaked and silent, the Orion's judgment drifted like a defanged predator, broken not by weaponry, but by realization. Humanity didn't need an army to conquer the stars. Sometimes it only needed one Rae Brennan. The escape pod touched down on the drifting hull of the Eclipse Veil, a Terran stealth cruiser cloaked in the outer shadow of a rogue moon. No fanfare, no recovery crew, just a soft hiss of pressure equalizing as the pod sealed with the docking cradle. Rae Brennan emerged without urgency, as though returning from a quiet errand rather than one of the most audacious infiltrations in galactic history. Inside, the lighting was dim, clinical, efficient. A hallway extended before her, empty but for the distant whir of machinery and the subtle scent of ozone. As she moved, the ship seemed to come alive around her, recognizing its passenger. She passed a mirror, unintentional, a reflective surface near the maintenance door, and paused. Her eyes, usually bright with wry amusement, now held a storm beneath them. Lines of fatigue traced her brow. It wasn't the infiltration that wore on her. It was what came next. She arrived at the bridge. Admiral Nyla Harper stood at the center console, arms crossed. Silver streaked her otherwise raven black hair, though not from age. Stress marked her like metals. Beside her, a handful of analysts monitored the live feed from Rae's broadcast, which was now circulating across every major system within the Empire's diplomatic relay grid. The message wasn't hacked in. That would have been childish. They had asked the Empire to listen, and Rae had simply made it impossible not to. Nyla didn't turn when Rae stepped in. You were supposed to keep it subtle. I did, Rae said, dropping into the seat beside her. You should have seen what I didn't do. The broadcast reached the Threxian Premarch, 3 consulate planets, and at least 2 rogue fleets. Good, Rae said. I wanted them to feel included. One of the analysts, a sharp-jawed man named Ito, turned. We've got flagged responses coming in from 6 factions. Mostly disbelief. A few retractions of prior aggression orders. Rae shrugged. They'll believe it soon enough. Harper finally turned. You still haven't told me why you planted the core spike in their AI chamber. That wasn't part of the plan. That's because the plan was too safe. Safe gets us diplomatic leverage. Safe, Rae said, gets us ignored. Harper sighed. You're going to explain. Rae leaned forward, the muscles in her back tight, like a bow pulled halfway. You wanted them to see what humans are capable of. I made them feel it. That's what sticks. The spike is a Trojan directive, not a virus. It just tells their AI to flag all Earth-originating data as priority 1. That'll trigger panic. No, Rae said. It triggers attention. Panic is the phase after attention, which is exactly where we want them. Ito interrupted. We're receiving a direct channel request from the Galactic High Council. Live. Harper's lips pressed together. So soon. They're scared, Rae said softly. Scared people don't wait. The channel opened with a shimmering projection at the center of the bridge. 7 figures in 7 seats. The council rarely met in person. This was as ceremonial as it was political. Rae recognized 2 of them. an aging Krillian who once described humans as domesticated primates, and a Terrakite scholar who'd written extensively about Earth's emotional instability. They looked like they'd aged 100 years since her broadcast. "General Brennan," said the lead counselor, a crystalline being named Shell, "you have committed acts of subversion against a sovereign galactic vessel. Explain yourself." "Certainly," Rae said, rising smoothly. "I wanted to understand how the Empire functioned from the inside. You offered me the opportunity. I merely took notes. You infiltrated our ship. You captured me. I just turned the situation into a workshop." Shell blinked slowly. "You're admitting to espionage on behalf of Earth." "No," Rae said. "I'm admitting to an evaluation. You've spent decades circling our world, prodding us like we're some bizarre side project. What you didn't realize is that Earth's been watching you too. You presume Earth holds equal ground." Rae smiled, and it was the smile of a human who knew the temperature of the water was rising, but also knew she'd set the stove. "Earth doesn't need equal ground. We just need footing." Counselor Tyrell, the Terrakite, leaned forward. "Your people are dangerous. So are knives," Rae said. "It depends on who's holding them and what they're cutting." Shell folded his many arms. "Then let us be blunt. What does Earth want?" It was the question she'd been waiting for. Rae turned slightly, meeting Harper's eyes for a beat, then back to the council. "We want you to stop pretending you're in charge." A silence that could have broken stone followed. "You've built an empire based on hierarchy, control, compliance. We're not here to fit your mold. We're here to be the reminder that intelligence isn't the same as safety. That polite species with nice table manners can still bite your throat out if provoked." "You threaten the peace." "There was never peace," Rae said. "Just quiet condescension and a lot of spaced bureaucracy. Earth wasn't invited to the table. We were put in a corner and labeled a cautionary tale. We're just returning a favor, only we brought better metaphors." Shell shifted. "This path leads to conflict." "No," Rae replied. "It leads to redefinition. You're about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or violence. It's our intentionality. You push us? We absorb. You mock us? We study. You chain us? We wait." She let the weight of that sit in the room. "Until the right moment," she added. "And then, we respond." The council did not reply immediately. Behind their still expressions, Rae could feel the tremor of re-evaluation. Good. They were finally considering the one variable their models had excluded: human resolve. The feed blinked off. Harper turned. "That could have started a war. It could have ended one," Rae said. "One they've been quietly waging against our autonomy for years." Harper studied her. "You planned all of this before the capture." "Of course I did. They think humans are spontaneous. They confuse emotion with recklessness. But I've been planning this since the first time I read a galactic pamphlet that called Earth too volatile for membership. I decided if we weren't going to be invited to the table, we'd just flip the table." Ito exhaled slowly. "Ma'am, the council has sent another message. Not a threat. A request." Harper's brows lifted. "What kind of request?" Ito hesitated. "They want to send emissaries. To Earth." Rae's lips curled, but it wasn't satisfaction. "Not exactly. More like recognition. Now the learning begins." Back on the Orion's judgment, chaos still lingered. Engineering teams worked to untangle the AI directive Rae had left behind. The guards had been recalled. The mercenaries were discharged. The rumor mill, ruthless and ungoverned, had already renamed Cell 88 to the Echo Vault. The phrase Brennan Protocol entered unofficial military doctrine across 5 species. No one quite knew what it meant, only that if you encountered a smiling human who offered you a seat, you ran the other way. On Earth, preparations were underway. Rae's infiltration had not only exposed weakness in the Empire, it had revealed something even more valuable: curiosity, suspicion, fear wrapped in interest. That's all Earth had ever needed. Not domination, leverage. Rae stood on the observation deck of the Eclipse Veil, watching a sliver of the Empire's domain rotate in the stars. Harper joined her. You did what none of us could. Rae shook her head. I just showed them what was already true. They'll be watching Earth now. They always were, Rae said. They just didn't think we were looking back. Harper folded her arms. What happens when they send fleets? Rae didn't answer immediately. Then they won't. Not yet. They'll send diplomats, envoys, academics. They'll bring questions, curiosity, eventually maybe fear. But it'll be laced with respect. And if they do send fleets? Rae turned, her smile gentle, terrible. Then we show them what Earth is really capable of. She turned back to the stars. We didn't come here to conquer, she said quietly. We came to complicate. And now they know. The stars blinked silently in return, unaware, or perhaps entirely aware, of the reckoning quietly brewing on the blue and green marble that had, until now, been treated like a scientific oddity. The trap hadn't been Rae. It hadn't been the escape or the broadcast or the AI infiltration. The trap had been Earth, and they'd stepped in at the moment they dared to chain a smiling human and mistake her silence for surrender. The galaxy would never be the same. And Earth? Earth was just getting started.